Welcome to The Explainer. All right, let's jump straight into this, because today we're looking at one of the absolutely most fascinating financial and honestly social experiments ever conducted. We're breaking down top fund manager Lex Van Dam's completely crazy reality experiment. See, after 16 years as a highly successful trader, Lex decided to test a really radical theory. He wanted to know, could he take everyday people with absolutely zero previous trading experience, teach them the basics, and actually have them successfully run their own hedge fund?
And so that brings us to the core question of this whole thing. Can 8 completely ordinary people beat Wall Street using $1 million of someone else's money? Now, to pick these people from thousands of applicants, Lex really only looked for 2 specific traits. First, a basic ability to do quick math under pressure, and second, and way more importantly, a super high tolerance for stress. They got a quick crash course in everything from generating trade ideas to reading complex technical charts, and then, well, they were thrown straight to the wolves.
Look, the sheer gravity of what they were doing really cannot be overstated here. This was not some paper trading simulation, right? It wasn't a theoretical game. This was literally $1 million of Lex Van Dam's own personal, hard-earned cash on the line. Like Lex himself said, if they lose 5%, it's a humiliation, but if they lose it all, it's an absolute disaster. So these novices were set up on a trading floor right in the heart of London, given computer terminals plugged directly into the global markets, and told they had just 2 months to turn a profit and maybe earn a massive bonus.
So who were these brave or maybe slightly crazy individuals? Well, our cast of 8 novices included Mike, a 36-year-old retired Army major, Cleo, a 26-year-old ex-vet and self-proclaimed perfectionist, and Simon, a 63-year-old IT engineer who is nearing retirement. Then you had Amit, a shopkeeper looking for a better life, Caroline, an entrepreneur and single mom of twins, Oki, a 20-year-old economics student, Sam, an environmentalist trying to figure out if ethical trading is even a thing, and finally Emil, a literal fight promoter from Liverpool. Completely diverse, everyday backgrounds, all walking onto a professional, cutthroat trading floor.
Section 1. Trading the Credit Crunch. Let's talk about the environment they walked into, because the timing of this experiment, it literally couldn't have been more dramatic. They didn't get to start in some nice, calm, predictable bull market. No, they were trading right in the teeth of the disastrous 2008 global financial crash. Within their very first week, U.S. mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac absolutely plunged, shedding a third of their value in a single morning. To put that in perspective, we are talking about 35 billion pounds of global investment just vanishing in minutes. That quote is from Anton Creel, the veteran city trader that Lex hired to supervise the desk, and I think it perfectly bridges the gap between cold, boring economic data and sheer human terror. The professionals, the guys on Wall Street and in the city of London, were totally panicked. The very foundations of the global economy were shaking, and right in the middle of this historic, unprecedented volatility sat our 8 novices, desperately trying to make sense of screens that were just bleeding red. To survive this mess, they had to start using advanced market mechanics, stuff like short selling. That's basically when you borrow, sell, and buy back shares to actually make a profit when a stock drops. Well, during the massive banking collapse, the entire team decided to short sell massive amounts of bank stocks right before a major earnings report from Citigroup. They all assumed the numbers would be terrible, but guess what? The numbers came in better than expected. The market violently rallied, and it cost the novices thousands of pounds in a matter of minutes. Just brutal. And that brings us to the actual definition of a hedge fund, which is an investment body designed to make money whether the markets go up or down. The absolute most important word there is hedge. When the team shorted those banking stocks, they engaged in what Lex furiously referred to as naked punting. They didn't buy any stocks to protect their downside if the market went up. They bet entirely on a crash. So when the market rallied instead, they had zero protection. It really proved just how absolutely crucial risk management is over simply guessing which way a stock is going to go. Section 2. The Psychology of Fear. As the losses started piling up, the true devastation wasn't financial, it was psychological. Because we very quickly learned that trading is not just a math test. Take analysis paralysis, for example. This perfectly and tragically illustrates the story of Cleo, the ex-vet. During training, everyone pegged her as the smartest person in the room. Super intelligent, highly structured thinker. But the second real money was on the line, she just froze. Her perfectionism and this intense fear of losing money led to a total inability to pull the trigger on a trade. She literally sat at her desk for weeks, crying, terrified to invest, completely paralyzed by the fear of being wrong.
Then we have Simon, the 63-year-old IT engineer. Now, Simon was a guy totally used to logic and computers behaving exactly how they're supposed to. The stock market, as we know, does not do that. Simon was sitting on a falling stock and he panicked. He called his broker to sell a third of his shares just to reduce his risk, but in his sheer emotional panic, he accidentally told the broker to buy more shares instead. When he finally realized his mistake, he tried to overcorrect, and ultimately it cost the team hundreds of pounds, purely due to an emotional, panic-driven technical error.
Which leads to this absolutely stunning admission from Simon. The last time I had trauma like this was getting divorced. I really want you to think about that for a second. Imagine the continuous, agonizing pain of making a decision, watching your screen literally blink red at you, and knowing deep down you are draining thousands of pounds of someone else's money. It's a total psychological meat grinder.
Section 3. Traits of a survivor.
So if raw intelligence and logic aren't enough to survive on the trading floor, what actually works? Well, we saw a massive psychological divide here. On one side, you've got Cleo's perfectionism and fear, leading to tears and total paralysis. But on the other side, we have Caroline, the single mother and entrepreneur. Caroline had the exact same lack of experience as Cleo, but she had this incredible emotional detachment. When her stocks tanked, she didn't panic, she just calmly held her positions, waited for the market to turn, and executed her strategy without letting any fear cloud her judgment. Turns out, resilience beats perfectionism every single time.
We can also look at two really distinct approaches here to see how success often came down to embracing very structured strategies to just tune out all that market noise. Emil, the fight promoter, he just started trading brands he actually recognized and liked, Apple, Nike, BlackBerry, while shorting the brands he didn't. Sounds super simple, right? But it gave him a framework. Meanwhile, Mike, the ex-soldier, treated the whole thing like a literal military operation. He traded arms manufacturers, stripped every ounce of emotion away, and viewed it all as a cold calculation of pure profit and loss. Having a system, literally any system, is what kept them from drowning in the chaos.
Look at this quote from Oki, the 20-year-old economics student. "You live and die 1,000 times in a week." That right there perfectly summarizes the exhausting reality of day trading. Even for the ones who survived, the emotional whiplash is just extreme. You can be the smartest person in the room at 9 a.m. and the biggest loser on the desk by 3 p.m. just because some bank in Asia got downgraded or the price of oil spiked over some news in the Middle East. You're riding this constant, never-ending wave of adrenaline and despair.
Section 4. The final verdict.
So after weeks of hemorrhaging cash and dealing with all the internal desk drama, Lex Van Dam finally stepped in to clean house. The reality of Wall Street is totally brutal, and Lex brought that reality down hard on the novices. Simon, who was just completely broken by the stress at this point, voluntarily resigned. Cleo, despite her obvious intelligence, was brutally fired by Lex and Anton because she simply could not overcome her fear of investing. But for the ones who adapted, like Emil and Caroline, the rewards were immediate. Lex doubled their capital, rewarding their emotional discipline and actually trusting them to make his money back.
Ultimately, the absolute most crucial takeaway from this whole incredible experiment is this. Trading is a game of emotional discipline and risk management every bit as much as it is mathematics. The people who failed didn't fail because they couldn't read a technical chart or do some quick math. They failed because they let fear, panic, and stubbornness totally override their logic. The survivors? They were the ones who could detach, strictly follow a system, and just brutally manage their risk.
Which leaves us with one final, really provocative thought to wrap up this explainer today. Let's say you are handed 25,000 pounds of someone else's money tomorrow, sat down in front of a live, blinking market terminal. Would you have the emotional fortitude to trade? Or would you freeze? It's a question that really forces you to challenge the perception of your own psychology, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the mind of a trader. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will catch you on the next one.